Howdy, y'all. It's Curious Raven on day 9 of Advent. We only have, a couple more days left. And then I will go back to just 3 videos a week. After this, I don't know. I might take a little bit of a break, but I'm not sure yet. Today we are doing other weirdly ghost stories, just a random bunch. And my guest today will be Papa Scare. I think this is the second year he's done this with me, and I'm just very grateful to have him here. I will leave his link down below, so go show him some love. Let's get on with the stories. Number 1. Sorry if this is so long and wordy. I'm not good at explaining things. This incident happened a couple months ago. I think back in July. And it's made me terrified of windows in the dark ever since. It was around 10 p.m. at night, and I was on the phone with my boyfriend. I wasn't feeling tired. It felt pretty fine, actually. Although I had my lights turned off, which naturally makes me feel uneasy sometimes. Then I noticed my window start to light up like it became daylight or something. I froze in fear until I saw a shadow figure appear. I saw it through the blinds of my windows. The figure looked vaguely human, except more lanky and kinda just off, I guess. It moved its head around like it was looking inside for something. Then it looked right at me and waved. As soon as it did, I screamed loudly. I hung up the phone and yelled for my parents to come in. Once they did and turned on my lights, the figure was gone. I was so shaken up by it, my parents had to hammer a blanket over the window to get me to calm down. That memory's been haunting me for months. I've had several nightmares about it, and it still bugs me. What was that? I doubt it was a hallucination because I wasn't feeling tired or nothing. Shit, it felt way too real. Another thing? What could have been its intentions? In hindsight, it just waved and didn't seem evil or wanting to cause harm. It was just really freaky. I want to know what you guys think, because I am no expert involving in paranormal things. Thanks for reading. Number 2. I recently went to Tahoe with my wife and children for a few days. We stayed in an Airbnb, which had another vacation unit below it. One night around 10 p.m., my wife and I heard loud knocking twice, which seemed to be coming from below us. I rushed to the front door and found no one. Naturally, I walked around the perimeter, and there didn't seem to have been anyone outside. We have a 1-year-old and wondered if the couple staying below us might have been annoyed and was being passive aggressive about it. It happens. We told the unit owner about it and politely asked if the couple had heard anything. They claimed they heard nothing. And after exchanging a quick, pleasant word the next day, I was inclined to believe them. I'm a want to believer and have some health skepticism. This was a weird one. Had anyone heard of any paranormal experiences or encounter in the Tahoe area? Number 3. So I was in my early teens when I had this encounter. I was staying over at my uncle's house for the holidays, which had sort of a shack thing in the back. The clothesline was near the shack, and I hung my towel out in the sun during the day and forgot to take it in as I fell asleep in the afternoon. I ended up waking up sometime around 9 p.m. I had been very tired that day, and I decided to take a shower, so I had to grab my towel from the line. As I was approaching the clothesline, my eyes were focused at the back shack because it was particularly pitch dark area. For some reason, I had an eerie feeling. As I was reaching for my towel, I saw a pair of shiny yet dim circles in the dark behind the shack. As I watched, the only seemed to grow bigger and red. stood frozen and stared at the pair of what I can only imagine as eyes staring back at me. For about a minute, I did not think to move or scream as I was frozen on the spot, while still looking at the pair of red eyes, when my body reacted to flight mode and I ran as fast as I could back to the house. With that being said, my uncle's house has had its fair share of haunted encounters by those who have been in it. So when I told my family about it, they just brushed it off as another one of those haunted stories from this house. My guess is because it's a very old house. Anyways, I can still remember this encounter as clear as day, and it still holds the same feeling it had years ago when I think of it. Number 5. Okay, so my child is 8 months old, and my mother passed away 2 months ago. I was never close with my mother, and she only met my child twice before passing. My wife is convinced it is her messing with us, but I'm not too sure. Since my mother's passing, I've had doors open in my house when nobody was home. Weird sounds and knocking outside my bedroom door. Both myself and my wife have experienced this. I'm setting up cameras tomorrow evening to try and capture some of this. Do you think this would be a cause for concern, or should I not worry about it? I no longer feel at ease in my home, which was not the case a year ago. We have also had things touch us in the middle of the night that couldn't be explained while in bed. Number 6. This happened in the very first house I lived in with my family. When I was quite young, the house had belonged to my great aunt and uncle. My great uncle, we called him Uncle Hopper, passed away in the house, in my brother's bedroom actually. And ever since then, we all had a strong feeling the house was haunted. We had a cat at the time named Sam, and Sam's food, water, and litter box were down in the basement. And she would sit at the top of the stairs leading into the basement, and she would just sit there and stare for hours. And she would also hiss at something she could sense down there. She would eventually venture down there to do her business, but we could tell she didn't like it down there at all, so we eventually moved all of her stuff onto the main floor. One very strong memory I have, though, from that house was when my brother and I were playing in the basement with a ball. And in the corner near the stairs, we had an old TV that had been off while we were down there playing. All of a sudden, the TV turned on by itself, and it just happened to be playing an old cartoon, Alice in Wonderland. We were a bit shocked, but then all of a sudden we heard a loud pounding sound coming from the door behind us, which really spooked us, because this door led to a small closet. We opened it and found nothing inside except for boxes and some clothing. So we went upstairs right away and told our parents, and they seemed to believe us, being I'm pretty sure they'd noticed the paranormal activity as well. To this day, we still talk about the old house, and we're all convinced still that it is haunted by our great Uncle Hopper. He definitely wasn't a mean spirit, he just wanted us to know that he was still around.
Growing up, we stayed at my grandparents' house during the holidays. Both my parents worked full time, so it made handling us over the vacation difficult. Our grandparents lived in the countryside in an old creepy house. I always remember it had a weird smell to it. Kinda sweet, but not in a good way. I want to say old cheese, but to be honest, I don't know what that smells like. My brother and I would share a room. We had a separate, musty old bed each, with what I called old people flowers print on the blankets. Whenever our parents said we were staying there, we begged not to. Not only was it boring, but as we got older, We noticed weird things more and more. Maybe we slept heavier when we were younger, I don't know. At night, we would hear our grandparents' voices outside calling to us. The first time it happened, I looked out the window, but saw nothing. When I turned around, I saw my brother was awake. "I hear them too," he whispered, eyes wide. I hurried back to bed and put my blankets over my head. After that, we started hearing knocks from inside the walls at night. Never more than one at a time, though. So, thinking back, this wasn't paranormal? Here's one event I remember quite clearly. My brother and I were a little older by now, and my grandparents let us stay up a little later to watch TV or read or whatever. They always went to bed around 8 p.m. and told us that we had to be in bed by 9 to 9:30. Being a little rebellious, we always stayed up until around 10 or even later after we figured out that they slept like logs. Anyways, we were staying up watching TV in the living room. I was lying down on the old brown sofa, and my brother was sitting on the floor, leaning against it. We then hear a knock behind us. We both kind of jump because of the silence of the house and the suddenness of the knock. But when nothing further happens, we settle back down into watching TV. Then, we hear another knock off to the left of us, on the wall we were closest to. Then I hear my grandfather's voice calling out to me from outside. Then another knock, this time from the TV stand. We ran so fast to our bedroom we didn't even turn off the TV. We dove under our covers and pulled the blankets over our heads. Unfortunately, the knocks and voices followed us, but somehow we fell asleep. We awoke to our grandfather yelling at us for leaving the TV on all night and wasting his money. We tried explaining what happened over breakfast, but our grandfather refused to believe us. Our grandmother just stayed silent. We begged our parents over the phone to let us come home early. They eventually relented. Our dad took time off work or something. After that, he always made alternate arrangements for our holidays. Talking to him later in life, he told us that he experienced the same kind of things as a kid and could tell by our terror that we were telling the truth. We still went over to our grandparents for special events like Christmas, but thankfully, never stayed overnight there, ever again.
Okay, that is the end of our stories today. Thank you to Papa Scare for joining us. Please have a great day. I hope y'all's week is going good. Tomorrow is Saturday. It is day 10 of Advent. It's Creepypasta Day. All right, I love y'all so much. See you tomorrow. Until then, remember, it's scary out there. Please like and subscribe.
Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross